Welcome to the video and live streaming show. My name's John Lacey, and as always, I'm joined by Sam Proof. Today on the show, we're talking about letting go of things that no longer serve us. So whether that's tools, technology, or old ways of working, different strategies that maybe aren't quite as relevant for us today as they were when we started. We're just going to look at some of the things that we can do to perhaps make your life a little bit more easy. So we are going out live to all the various places, so let us know where you're watching from. I feel like I had a button for that. Here we go. So hashtag Team Live if you want to humor me, or hashtag Team Replay if you want to do that afterwards when we're not live. But Sam, how are you doing? How's your week been? How are things in general?
Yeah, it's going okay. It's kind of getting to a busy part with Halloween coming up. So we've been running around doing a lot of things. We actually had the first of 3 Halloween events last night with the family at Amanda's school, where she's a teacher. They do a trunk or treat. So we all dressed up as pirates, and we decked out our car as a pirate ship with lots of things to pillage and plunder, and had a good time there. I'll have some pictures of that soon on our Instagram and my personal Discord and things like that for anyone who's really interested. And yeah, just keeping going on life and trying to figure out what comes next. I'm in the market for a full-time job once again, so I'm looking around.
Nice. So I must admit, Halloween is barely a thing here in Australia, although I have had some friends in America send me some photographs of some of their neighbors' decorations, and there are some really spooky things out there. So I mean, if that's your thing, I'm sure people out there are loving the spooky season. A lot of us are just hoping we can keep Mariah Carey at bay for that little bit longer, but Christmas is coming. It's almost November. I don't know where the year has gone. It's been crazy. But let's check in with the chat. Hello to Said, the facilitator. And don't forget, too, that you can follow Said. Said has been a guest on this show. I'm going to put a chat command into the chat. Hopefully that's working, because I didn't actually see Said's comment there, but I guess I'll find out in a second. But yes, okay, that's coming through. Awesome. So you can go and follow him. He's, at the time of recording, I believe he's sitting on 249 subscribers. So we just want one more. So if you can subscribe, head over to youtube.com/@thefacilitator. All right, let's get into our content. I might even try a different button on the stream deck. Let's zoom in a little bit. So let's talk about some of the things that may have changed. And I guess in full disclosure, I'm just going to tell everybody I'm such a creature of habit. If I find something that works for me, I'm inclined to do that for the rest of time. And sometimes that serves me well, and sometimes that serves me really, really badly. So we're going to talk about some of the things that maybe aren't working so well. And again, I love that question, Said, but we'll come back to that in a second. First of all, I guess there are things around us that may change and which we don't have a lot of control over. And I don't want to get on my soapbox too much, but I think we have to acknowledge that sometimes certain platforms, certain tools get bought out by other companies and other people, and they change quite dramatically. I guess, Sam, let's talk about StreamYard first of all, because it's I sort of joke that nothing annoys me more than generative AI, but lately StreamYard has been annoying me even more than generative AI, which is really saying something. So StreamYard was such a beautiful company, really lovely people. They were in constant contact with their community. They had weekly town hall meetings to get feedback and explain things. It was so magical and so beautiful. And as a piece of software, it was one of the things we would recommend to everybody, because it was so easy to get started with, but you could actually take it a little bit further, like not quite OBS Studio Ecamm Live in terms of production, but you could actually sort of do custom layouts and different things. They have been purchased by a company called Bending Spoons. This company has a history of acquiring popular products with subscriptions and just raising the prices and minimizing the workforce. And that does seem to be what's happening here. And it's just really, really unfortunate. Do you have any thoughts on that, Sam?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not even that they've raised the prices, which is, annoying enough, but like they've done it in this way that is such a dig to the existing customer base, where if you're not an existing customer, you actually have a different opt-in rate that's lower. And it's like, what? That's not cool. Like, these people have been with you for years and years, and some of us have been very vocal advocates, which I have to go take down a whole bunch of videos. I feel like, where I said some very positive things, because this was back, in the times where the two actual creators were doing the town halls and stuff like that, and it was such a really great community. Um, and even until that last like week or so, they were still pushing out new functionality and new features that was like really awesome and requested and super cool stuff. And then like the switch happened and it was just so night and day, so instantaneously. It was like hard to ignore, right?
Mm. Absolutely. And, it's, I guess the interesting thing about that is they had their weekly town hall meetings and
Yeah.
they would go out live to YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn and various places. And I still actually, because I used to watch on LinkedIn and copy and commented on LinkedIn, I'm seeing a lot of comments, recent comments, which have been months and months since those things went live, just people begging for some technical support and getting nowhere at all. So not only have they appear to have removed a huge chunk of their workforce, then don't seem to be getting back to people. They've increased the rates. There are some new functionality brought in with the new rate increases, but I don't think it's really, I don't think it's a good match.
Yeah, I forget what things they added, but I remember seeing that come out and I was like, but why? Like, why do we need any of that? Here are the things that have been requested. And then they never replied to me because I was like literally on their post. And I was like, what about these things, which would be awesome and helpful and would attract this whole subset of streamers that are gamers that you don't get because they need this other thing, which is like browser-based overlays and stuff like that. Yeah, it feels like very much in 6 months, this company or StreamYard itself, not the main company, may no longer exist. That's what the feeling is to me. It seems like I've seen this sort of, sinking ship thing happen before, where it's like everything gets more expensive, the team gets smaller, and the team gets smaller, and the team gets smaller, and then eventually the product goes away.
Yeah, so, and I think like they introduced dark mode. I think it was 4K streaming or something. Again,
both of those. Like,
yeah, it's and I guess the other thing too is like this is just their business model. And if you were an Evernote user, for example, you kind of already know what this looks like and how this plays out. So it is really unfortunate. And the thing about StreamYard as a company was they had so much heart. They really cared. They did so much outreach. They've sent me merchandise, and I can't tell you the last time a company has sent me merchandise. And I feel a little bit conflicted about owning it these days because it's not what it was. But anyway, let's move on from that one. We'll have a little bit more negativity, and then we'll maybe move on to some things more constructive. The other thing too is sometimes social media platforms change, and sometimes they're purchased by different people and they go in different directions. And I don't really want to talk about he who shall not be named. But Twitter X is not what it used to be. I guess for content creators, for streamers, you do need to actually sign up for their premium offering to stream to Twitter. So, I mean, that in itself is already annoying to me personally, but culturally, it's gotten very political and I mean, to his credit, the owner now wears his political alliance well on his sleeve, so you know exactly what that is.
It's
in happier news, hello to CG who's joining us in the chat.
CG.
Great to have your company today. So yes, I guess platforms change, and the thing about social media, it's great because there are lots of people on those platforms potentially that can see your content. But again, it is rented land. It's often a good idea to go back to the things that you actually have ownership of, like your website, for example, which is something I definitely need to get back in and sort of update my website. I haven't touched it in a really long time. And I'm a web design developer by trade. That's what I used to do for a living. So it's I have no excuse, but anyway, I don't know if you wanted to say anything about Twitter.
Yeah, I was gonna say that with Zitter, I'm gonna call it that. I've taken up this sort of ideology, I guess. Anyway, the sort of just mental accounting where I'll go on, and as I apply this to most social platforms, but it definitely started here. And I'll go on, and if I get to a point where I feel like I'm starting to get grumpy and angry at the things that I'm reading, that's it. I close it out. And like, that applies to TikTok and Facebook as well. Instagram, thankfully, is just vapid and not annoying. Like not annoying in an angry way. It's just vapid, right? But like, man, with like Twitter and sometimes Facebook, within just like 2 minutes, I'm like, oh, I'm done. That's what it is. I'm just done now, and I'll close it out. And you know what? I used to spend hours and hours on both of those platforms, and it's now like maybe 4 minutes spread out through the day. And I'm like, I have other things I can be doing aside from getting angry about people I don't know and I don't care about telling me things that aren't true. And I'm like,
And it's interesting because I feel like I've enjoyed that platform for much longer than most people. But
oh yeah,
but the reason for that is I just look at the people I follow. I don't go for the For You tab or whatever they call it these days. I don't look at the trending topics. That's a very easy way to lose your mind, is by looking at those trending news topics. Like, just don't even go there, because there are people that are trying to annoy you. So just don't do that. The other thing too, I just want to mention, which is perhaps not as problematic as the Twitter example, is just sometimes platforms change what is technically possible. And I know Facebook changed the way that you can stream to groups, and I didn't realize how many people actually stream to Facebook groups until that change happened. And in the StreamYard Facebook page, for example, there were just comment after comment of people just begging and pleading on how do I actually do this these days. So sometimes that can that can be another consideration. Hello to Business Growth Ready too, who writes, I plan to update all my websites over the holidays. Got to do the clients first, so he feels our pain. Yes, absolutely. And Sayed says same for him as well. All right, we're going to go to our first promo. We're going to come back. I want to answer Said's question because I think it's a great one. And then we'll continue talking about some of the things that we're letting go of.
We are constantly training our cats every interaction that we have with them. Mm-hmm. So when Johan would get on my counter before, this is 10 years ago, before I was the cat expert that I am now, Johan would jump on the counter. What was the first thing I did? I'd say his name, Johan. Well, he loves that. That's a reward for him. He said, you just said my name. I would go over to him and I'd talk to him and be like, you can't be on the counter. Johan loves when I talk to him. Ding, that's another reward for Johan. I'd pick him up and put him on the ground, but I didn't want him to think I was mad at him. So when I'd pick him up very nicely and kiss him on the head and say, I love you, but you can't be here. I'd put him on the ground. I had just done 3 things that rewarded him for being on the counter. So I was encouraging him to continue doing that.
And that's a promo for Sam's podcast, Just Kidding Around, which you can learn more about over at cuteavalanche.com. This is the video and live streaming show, and Sam is just admiring the new banner that I created in DaVinci Resolve Fusion. And we do have a few flourishes for today's show, so I would be curious if people have thoughts about those. Let me know in the comments. But let's go back to Said's question, because it is a cat question. Said writes, cat costumes, yay or nay? What say you, Sam?
Now, is that costumes for cats or costumes for people of cats? Because I'm fine with the people version. The cat version, where it's putting costumes on cats, it depends. It depends on the cat, depends on the costume. So in general, I won't put costumes on my cats.
It is interesting, and I don't own a cat, but I've seen a lot of content about cats, and some cats just they just love those sort of thing, and others just can't stand it, and they will just destroy whatever you try to put on them. So I think it does depend on the cat very much so. Again, cats, and Said writes cats in costumes is specifically what I was referring to there, but I think the answer still stands. Hello to Farquad, who writes kitty. And I just want to check in with this comment from Said. So he writes, I started using Instagram a few months ago after resisting it for a long time. Mostly I've been reposting some fun stuff. I just realized I have 30 plus posts already. And to be really honest with you, that's kind of my entire philosophy about social media. It's not that you have to be everywhere and do everything, but if I already have something that I can just upload and write some words beside and hit publish, I figure why not? If I'm giving that stuff away for free, I might as well share it as widely as I can. So you can certainly do that as well. All right, so today on the show, we're talking about letting go of things that no longer serve us in terms of tools, technologies, and strategies. So we need to talk about some tools because some things work really well up until they stop working, and that's kind of where I need to start today. One of my favorite tools in the past had been the ASIO plugin, which is and I think it stands for Audio System Input Output. And the great thing about that was that it would give me the ability to bring in the different inputs from my Rodecaster Pro in as separate inputs into OBS by themselves. And I love that because it meant I could have like my sound pad on one channel. I could have any of my 4 microphones on different channels and different scenes. I could bring somebody on a phone and actually Bluetooth them into the conversation as well and have them as their own input. And that all worked really, really well until it stopped working. And last week, actually, on my DaVinci Resolve stream, it was so weird because one of my neighbors started using their power tools because I live in suburbia and people love doing that here. And I kind of commented, I hope you can't hear that. But when I did, all the audio just cut out immediately. And I got it back by just going with the stereo output, but I just thought I can't rely on this. It's just too flaky. It works sometimes, but not all the time. And I really want it to work consistently. So I realize I'm putting you on the spot, Sam, but are there any tools that maybe you enjoyed using and then you had to let go of?
Trying to think of there's got to be something. Like I have this. You all know I love Mix It Up. Mix It Up released a new update that is a breaking update. So certain things, if you've implemented, which I clearly have, either have to be fixed or rebuilt or abandoned. And I'm really worried. I haven't installed this new version yet, but I'm really worried that it is in fact going to invalidate some of the things I've made to such an extent that I need to find a different way to do it. I will still continue to use Mix It Up, but maybe not for these things, which is basically I've built a series of mini games for both of my streams. And it did something to how overlays work that seems to be bad. So I may have an answer for this question at a different time. Beyond that, gosh, I'm sure there is stuff and I just can't think of it right now. Tools come and go, and sometimes those choices are made for you because they just are gone. Like, I was a big fan of Mob Crush until it wasn't a thing anymore. So there's things like that.
And I mean, a lot of those streaming destinations that you started on don't exist anymore because I guess that's the thing.
There's a lot of that too.
There's a lot of change in the world, and it's pretty constant. And you kind of need to have some parameters around how to negotiate all of that because, I kind of mentioned this in the Lone live streaming newsletter this week. Like, I don't think jumping from shiny object to shiny object is a good approach, but by the same token, I think it's still worthwhile to be open to new possibilities and new ways of working because sometimes you'll just adopt an approach and it'll work well. And, maybe you need to take some time and kind of reflect to see if it actually still supports you in the way that you want to be supported. So I guess the other thing I wanted to mention under sort of this banner is just simply that we had been using Video Ninja to bring you into my version of OBS, and it works some of the time. The quality wasn't always great, and we are trying something called ping.gg today, which is a paid service. And for the most part, I would say your video is a lot crisper this week, and I'm curious to hear what people in the chat might make of that if they're regular viewers. It's not perfect, but I guess on some level, perhaps nothing ever will be.
Maybe.
Because we are physically on opposite sides of the earth, so the fact that we can talk together at all is kind of a miracle. But
yeah, I think it's competing relatively not great internets. I know one of the big differences between ping and video is that ping is down down-resed me to 480 by default. And I think last week we did a test and tried to do it at 720, and there definitely was an issue with that. And VDO just brings me in at either 720 or 1080. So it was like really, I think, a bitrate issue more or less, and it was not great. Farquaad says, yeah.
So Farquaad just wrote better than Sam's AOL dial-up video stream. And
I got 60 hours for free.
And Saeed is saying yes, it looks less grainy. So I mean, I think it is an improvement. And I guess the other thing I will say is this was actually something that Garen Parkins, who I'm just trying to think, the desk rig setup. So he has a company that builds some gear essentially to hold a teleprompter and a camera and some different things as well. And his company sort of produces shows for people. Yeah. And I think they kind of operate the OBS elements, and the guest and or host sort of come in via ping.gg. So that was where we first heard about it. So I guess just shout out to him for recommending that so many episodes ago. So we do appreciate that. But yes, sometimes you just got to try things out. And I guess that's the other thing too. One of my other character traits, shall we say, is that I kind of want to get the best deal I can. So often I will go for the yearly subscription just to save a little bit of money. But sometimes things just change, and you really want the flexibility of just to cancel that after a month if you decide you want to go in a different direction. So those are a couple of things. Let's yep.
I was going to say, I don't know why I totally forgot this, but like previously for like Qt Avalanche for the multi-streaming, I was using originally StreamYard, and then when my freebie on that ran out, I started using Restream again, just because you can do that straight through OBS. And then I found a new service called Beam, and I've been using that since I found them a few months ago. So that's a pretty big significant change to how that whole thing is running. It still seems to be presenting some issues with certain platforms, mostly DLive. And then there's like, just based on how crappy this internet is, and it drops at least once a day. There are parts of the specific platforms of the stream that fade out halfway through the day, but like you can go in and individually toggle them off and back on. Whereas with some of the other multicasting services, it was like an all or nothing. Like if your internet went down long enough, it would just cut everything, or else it would automatically like reestablish that connection, which I think both Restream and StreamYard were actually pretty good at. But so that's a change that I made recently.
Awesome. And you'll need to, I think you'll need to make a video about Beam, because I'm still not across it. So I'd love to hear more about that maybe in a future episode. But let's go to another promo. We'll come back and we'll talk about maybe changing some strategies. This is the video and live streaming show. Thanks so much for being here.
Hi, I'm John Lacey, and in Build a Presentation Muscle, I want to talk about finding your voice, refining and sharing your message, using tools and technology to share that message, and looking after yourself as a creator.
And that's a promo for my podcast. I was going to say just kidding around. That's not my podcast. Build a Presentation Muscle, which you can learn more about over at johnlacey.com. It's all about showcasing your expertise through content creation. But this is the video and live streaming show today. And we are talking about letting go of things that no longer serve us, whether that's tools, technology, or strategies. And I think we need to talk about strategies because I guess the thing I noted in the newsletter this week was sometimes life throws you a curveball and you just have to adapt. And Sam has had a very character building year, I would suggest, in all kinds of senses. But
do you want large curveball?
Do you want to sort of, I don't necessarily want you to revisit the trauma of all of that, but maybe in terms of changing your approach, can you talk to us about that?
Yeah. So, back in May, as John said, we had a big curveball in which, we were displaced from our house and we had to move into an apartment. And with that apartment came a lease that was very restrictive on us having the ability to foster cats, as well as not a great internet. So Cute Avalanche went from being a live 24/7 cat cam that had live cats running around with 8 different cameras that people could control remotely or switch to remotely. One that you could actually physically PTZ, pan, tilt, and zoom with. Um, like, you know, we had to go from that to just running a playlist for, you know, all hours of the day because we did not have live cats we could show. And Amanda did not want just like cameras in our new bedroom just to show the 2 house cats, because it's not exactly the same experience. And it's, you know, it's like she needed a break, I think, from the whole camera thing. Yeah, so we started doing just a playlist, and within, you know, a month or so, I had to really reevaluate what it is that are, you know, what it is that we're doing as far as maintaining and continuing the brand, because that wasn't very interactive. So we do still one chat a week where we come in on Saturday mornings and we talk to everyone. We give kind of life updates, even though they're not foster cat updates, more or less. And that was pretty much it. And I was like, oof, this is such an about face. Like, we've definitely seen a dip in our viewership, and, you know, with that, a dip in our subscribership. So, you know, to sort of make some changes, I was like, what is it we can do? What are the things I've been doing, and how do I make that work? And I'd been trying to also make Sam Proof work, you know, bring that back from the dead, and you know, in a way, more so than just doing this Friday show, which goes out to my channel as well as John's channel. And, you know, I was starting to maybe do some videos here and try and keep up on all the social medias. And at the end of the day, I was like, this really doesn't move the needle, and it isn't, you know, monetized or anything like that. So it feels like a lot of wasted effort at this point. So I've, for the most part, aside from this show, put Sam Proof completely on hiatus, even though it basically already was. And then with Cute Avalanche, a few weeks ago, primarily, maybe a few months ago, but in the last few weeks, I've been pumping out like daily shorts videos. And I put that out on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram. So it's vertical videos as well as Facebook, because that just happens. And, you know, those first couple of weeks of it were substantial enough that I was like, okay, well, this seems to be part of the direction that we should be going in to keep some things active. And, you know, when it all came down to it, YouTube started to sort of shine in this realm where it was getting more videos that would sort of peak. Like, across all of the platforms, the same videos would perform between 200 and 400 views. And then occasionally, and mostly on YouTube, you'd see one that hit a little higher and would go into 1,000 or 2,000 views. And I was like, okay, so this is where I need to really put more focus on, more attention on. And like, I haven't even put a lot of the new plan into action yet. But what I've started to do there is we've scheduled out daily shorts almost to the end of the year at this point. And it's eventually going to become 2 videos a day, every other day or so. And then I've scheduled out community posts for like several months. And again, that's a few of those a day, 1 or 2 or 3. And we're going to start probably doing 1 long form video a month, assuming I don't completely lose my mind and burn out. But so far, the beauty of it is that if I can schedule things out far enough, that I'm not taking on, you know, double duty doing this long form video. It's just now filling in the gaps of where I was doing these things week by week. So yeah, I found that I can get a batch of videos, and I can you know, because we're dealing with shorts. We're dealing with generally 10-second videos, but sometimes longer. And when it's only a 10-second video, I can do 10 of those in an hour and have them updated, uploaded and ready to go and scheduled and all that stuff. Although I do kind of separate those tasks. So I've learned that really for me, I need to have those batch processes of like, I am just gonna sit here and do editing and CapCut and go forth with all of the videos and make that mental note of like, don't finish this, don't upload it now, even though CapCut is prompting me to do it later. And then I do all of the other stuff another time. And then even beyond that, 2 nights ago, I sat down with Keyboard Maestro, which is an automation program, and I built out a routine that reads my spreadsheet where I have the file name, the title, a YouTube description, an Instagram description, a TikTok description, when I want it posted, what time I want it posted, all of those kind of things. It reads out that line. And then I built out a routine that just posts the YouTube portion of it, which is how I was able to schedule up until the end of the year, basically.
And the funny thing is, I was like seconds away from asking you about you're having a spreadsheet, because I know you always have a spreadsheet. And like
Yes.
Sam is the kind of person that has a lot of interests and kind of wants to be pulled in all kinds of direction. And I feel like that's the way that you put a little constraints, a little bit of formatting around what you do. So I mean, I love that you're doing that.
Yeah.
And it sounds really exciting. And I like the feedback about the community feature on YouTube, especially because that's something I don't do very much of. Like maybe once a week I'll post something. And I guess the realization I had during the week is that I still need to manage my time. I still need to manage my energy levels. But in some ways, if I can put out more smaller things out into the world, that's potentially additional entry points to my little universe. So I kind of want to do more of that. And at one point, I think you did actually offer to take your posts and put them on my channel. But and I say this with so much love, Sam, but I really want my channel to be focused on the video and content creation. And some of your posts were like, is something a sandwich or not? And I'm like, yeah, no, I don't.
Oh no,
channel.
I would do on topic posts for that. No, I'm not gonna, like, that is a very Sam proof. I wouldn't even put that on some of my other channels. But like, yeah, it would be specific. I wasn't gonna share things I'd already done, basically. But
okay.
Just yeah, like. But that being said, like, first off, I just wanted to also point out this was almost an immediate reaction to me having more time because I wasn't doing Twitter as often. And I was like, I still want to say these things and put these things out. I just don't want to put it into the cesspool that is Twitter. And so I found, that like, doing it on the YouTube community tab, even though you don't really have the same sort of feed, especially because you don't have the same sort of feed, is such a brighter experience of like, I put this thing out and mostly only ever my community sees it. So it's already people who want to be interacting with me. And like overwhelmingly, especially on the Cute Avalanche side, they really do. Like, there's a really high engagement factor to those community posts. So even if you just sat down and thought out like 30 tech related, OBS related, video related questions and just scheduled those one day, a daily post, which you can do in, again, like maybe an hour, I think that would be a big boost to the channel and the community.
Absolutely. And I guess I should reflect a little bit on my strategy too, because as much as I hate to admit it, I don't have a lot of time. I don't have a lot of energy. And the thing that kind of keeps me accountable is scheduling these live events and just doing them live. But I think what I've learnt is that YouTube is still very much optimized for videos on demand that are horizontal. I mean, Shorts is its own little thing, and maybe we can talk about that in a second. And if I look at my analytics, it's the Learn OBS videos, and I swear there's probably only 4 or 5 of them, and of those 4 or 5, 3 of them are responsible for the sheer bulk of my views in any given month. And there's one plugin that I did a video on, and I don't know that I did a great job of explaining it, but clearly there isn't much else out there about it. So people are coming to me for that information. And I kind of do need to do more of that. It's just that as much as I love recording and editing video, it takes, like, I need to be in the right mindset to do that. I need to set some time aside for that. And I think what I'm probably going to do moving forward is record directly out of OBS and do it live and not require a whole bunch of cuts. I mean, I'll still need to do some captioning to put that out there. And I guess the thing that I've never been particularly good at is the YouTube packaging. So, I mean, I slap together YouTube thumbnails and titles, and I don't do keyword research, and I don't use any of those tools that people are promoting all the time. And I kind of, if I look at my stats, again, the traffic sources, it's always me pushing somebody from another social media platform with a link. That is always the number one source of traffic. So it's not really, or it doesn't seem to be a lot of YouTube redirecting people. So again, I feel like that's sort of a problem with my approach. But the thing that I have been doing in the last few weeks is going live on Sundays, Australian time, and just learning a little bit of DaVinci Resolve and just hanging out and doing a much more social, relaxed stream where, honestly, I got to be honest, I don't know what the hell I'm doing with DaVinci Resolve. So it's kind of hilarious just to watch me try stuff and go, that's wrong, Control Z, let's try something different. And, you know, just test some of these assumptions. But I am making, you know, I'm making a lot of graphics and overlays and stuff that we've been using for this show. So that's been really cool. And I guess in some ways, I've just felt really burnt out, and learning that software has actually been a lot of fun. So that's kind of the thing that I've been looking for in some ways, just to make sure I do try to have a little bit more fun, because a lot of this is a lot of work. And, you know, we hear all the stats about people, you know, releasing 3 or 4 videos or 3 or 4 podcast episodes and then just going, wow, this is just too much for too little response. Sure. And unfortunately, I think you need to be really committed to a lot of this stuff for a really long time before you start seeing any kind of traction. And I kind of said to somebody last week, like, it took a solid 100 episodes of this show before I started to feel particularly confident on camera. So yeah, I think, you know, in some ways you do need to keep pushing. And again, Saeed made this great joke about my inability to reference my own podcast. He writes, just building a presentation muscle around, which is sort of a combination of both our podcasts. But yeah, I think, like, you do need to keep going. You need to be consistent, but you also need to think about the long game. Like, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And I see a lot of beginners that are really enthusiastic, but they just go all in really quickly and they're just burnt out in a couple of weeks. And I think that's always a danger. So yes.
Yeah, I recently saw like a tweet from Roberto Blake where he was championing quantity over quantity. No, quantity over quality. Sorry, quantity. And you know, had he tweeted this 3 months ago, I would have been like, what is your problem? That's complete bull. But now that I've done this thing with daily shorts, I'm like, you know, this didn't take me that much time and is getting me much better results than I think if I had taken all of that time and made one video, right? So I think at a beginner level, it very much is find the topic, find the niche, and push out as much as you can easily, and then reevaluate later. But like, you know, when I was working at like Mob Crush and other startups and stuff, they always talk about the MVP, which is minimum viable product, which is why, you know, so many game companies send out games and then patches 2 months later because it's a broken game and they need to fix it. And it's all about getting out something that is just playable enough, to appease their community. And in a lot of ways, I think that is a good enough strategy for the video content world right now. And it's like, because of like things I've said this before time and time again, like 90%, especially if your shorts are going to be seen by new people, that you can just take that one thing and just redo it again and again and again. Because as both John and I have said, if you say something once, it's worth repeating over and over again, and you can just do it a little bit different and a little bit different and package it a little bit better and a little bit better. So you're almost working on both the quantity and the quality over iterations and time. You're just kind of doing the same thing in a different way, in a better way, more and more and more. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I guess I use the expression content creation quite a lot, and some people do take exception at that. They're like, my podcast is art, and it may be, and right. I think that that's fine. But for me, like I put a lot of love and care into my content, but it's something that you'll revisit when you need it. You won't necessarily rewatch it or reread it like it's The Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit or, right. I don't know, a great music album. And I guess, especially for social media content, especially for those shorts, like people experience them so quickly and they move on. And there's got to be a point of diminishing returns. Saeed writes 80% quality is enough, which I think is probably true. And again, as a bit of a perfectionist at times, this is something I struggle with quite a lot. And Ileana writes, it's not easy. I give myself two tries on video. I like audio and working on my first podcast. And to be honest, like, as much as this is a video and a live streaming show, any content you're putting out in the world is awesome. And I just want to applaud anybody that's making anything, because we know we're in the minority. We know there are, 99% of people who don't do this, and we're just giving it a go and seeing what happens. So,
right.
Ileana writes that Spanglish is her niche, which is interesting. And it's funny, whenever I see the word Spanglish, I think of Ricky Martin. But let's leave that there. And Saeed, who is like just the life of the party, he writes, I prefer the term minimum like lovable product. Nice. And that's just his sense of humor. Hello to Tanya Smith from Stream Like a Boss. She writes, hi fam, this conversation resonates with me, especially right now. Because I know like nobody does as much as Tanya does. I don't know when she sleeps. Although that's true of Saeed too, where it's, I don't know, 1 a.m. in the morning in Germany right now. But let's go and we'll talk. We're going to come back and talk about simplification a little bit in just a moment. So this is the video and live streaming show. Thank you so much for being with us.
Hey gang, if you need help running a live stream or optimizing your YouTube channel, get in touch with me. I can help you get set up with live streaming, operate your stream, strategize your YouTube channel, and so much more. Hit me up at samproof.tv, and I'll talk to you soon.
And if you do need help with those live production services, definitely reach out to Sam at samproof.tv. And hello to Jesse Wong, who is apparently an avid OBS user and listens to our podcasts on long drives home.
Awesome. What's your preferred podcast platform?
Yes, we'd love to know that.
That one's better.
All right. So let's, today on the show, we've been talking about, what can we actually let go of? What are some of the things that perhaps no longer serve us that... And again, I say this as someone who's really habitual. Like, I can do the same thing over and over again for the rest of the time until I get really bored of it. So sometimes it's worthwhile just taking stock, looking at the things you've done. And, sometimes you got to let these things go. And I'm not going to sing the song from Frozen, but I'm sure it's probably stuck in your head as well. We're going to talk about simplification right now. And I know this might be a little bit rich coming from the two nerdiest people you know. Because we do like to use some technical tools, like, we mention OBS quite a bit. And in some ways, we love the control of that. But I think the broader point I wanted to make about this segment is really, if something is making your life more difficult than it needs to be, can you try to find a different approach? And, you know, it could be that, you know, I spoke earlier about that ASIO plugin for OBS. I loved it when it worked, but it just stopped working periodically. And I had no control. I had no warning about when that was happening. And in some ways, I just needed to let it go and just work from the stereo output from the Rodecaster Pro. Saeed has said something in the chat which I have a lot of feelings about and should be its own TEDx talk. But Saeed writes, let's get rid of the imposter syndrome, shall we? I personally feel like imposter syndrome is one of those ideas that has a lot of good marketing but doesn't really get to the heart of the problem. Because there could be all kinds of reasons why you're not feeling particularly confident, and it could be a presenting reason. It could be maybe you're just too new in your journey to really be giving the advice you're giving. I'm not a fan of faking it until you make it. I think that's never a good idea. And again, I mentioned those coffee and content streams that I've been doing where I just fail in this software live in camera, and it's fine. Like, I don't need to pretend to know it all. I can just have fun with it. But that's probably a rant for another time. I won't go down that whole post. But again, Tanya agrees with that one as well. Hello from Arizona. So great to have your company from Arizona as well. I'd be really... and Saeed actually does this thing sometimes with his facilitation groups where he gets people to write in the chat where they're from, and he has a map that populates little pins all across it in real time, which is fun. But... anyway, I guess, Sam, you know, you're the first person to talk about going advanced and going nerdy, but have there been any times where you've just decided to dial it back a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, every once in a while, I have this habit of, like, wanting to dive deep into a million things. And, like, you know, I mentioned that I make these mini games for, like, the Cute Avalanche channel and stuff like that. And we have sort of an annual Halloween game, which is actively happening right now on the Cute Avalanche Twitch, where you essentially will see prompts that there's like, you know, like trick-or-treaters, they're trick cat treaters at the door, and you have to get treats and give them the treats and all of this stuff. And every year I've kind of built out more functionality on it and more functionality on it. And just due to life, as well as the pending collapse of my ability to use Mix It Up for that specific thing, I was just like, listen, I know people are asking for this game to come back this year, and I will run the game and launch the game, but I'm not advancing any of the programming this year. I'm just not going to do it. It's something that I would probably put 2 months of work into previously every year. And I just had to draw a line in the sand and be like, it's not something that is possible for me to put time and energy into right now. Cause like, it's kind of a well-loved thing with a small group within, you know, the larger community. And I'm like, I would love to be able to do it, but it doesn't make sense. Like, if you put it on paper, if this was a job, like a corporate, you know, startup or something, and you went, listen, I know we have 30,000 followers, right? About 20 of them would really like to do this thing. Like, a product manager at that point would be like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason to. So I had to, like, kind of put the screws on it and, you know, be my own manager and be like, no, Sam, you can't do that.
It is one of those things, and I see a lot of people that are really excited about a lot of different projects. And the truth is, we really kind of have limited resources. We have limited time. You kind of need to pick a lane and kind of stick with it, because I think the other problem with doing too many different things is that you confuse people. Like, they don't really know what you stand for or what you're about or what you can help them with. But let's just check in with the chat a little bit.
Some good chat.
Ernesto is writing, I'm new to learning OBS. I'm familiar with Ecamm and I have vMix, but I want to move to 4K. Again, we've kind of already alluded to the fact that between the Australian internet and Sam's American internet, we don't have the greatest connection. I would be very scared to try and do 4K personally, but I mean, I know some people are all about it.
It wouldn't work with us.
Yeah, so just make sure
here's my thought. Yeah. Like here's my thought on like the whole I want to do 4K thing. I don't know what platforms you're going to, but if we're assuming it is YouTube, you can actually look at your data, your analytics, and see what devices people are watching your stream on. And for the most part, they're going to be doing this, right? They're going to have like their phone and it's going to be there. And this doesn't need to even be 1080, like to be a decent picture. So it feels like a waste of resources. If for some reason you find out that the majority of people watching your stream are watching via TV, go to 4K.
Yeah, and to be honest, like I'd love to hear more about your experiences, Ernesto. But again, like we have some very real technical constraints here. But and I guess the thing, like when YouTube kind of announced that you could like zoom into these super large resolution, I'm like, yeah, I go to great lengths to sort of hide the fact that I have terrible skin on camera as it is, so I don't really want to open myself up to that. Sometimes you want to be like, just smear Vaseline over the lens as it is. But anyway, I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't explore that. In fact, I'd be really curious to hear how you go on that. Okay, so Sayed writes, sometimes I think I should host sessions on just my notebook to remind myself not everyone has our setups. Even a second monitor is a luxury for some. It's a good way to stay humble and build empathy. This is a really good point. And, you know, Tanya sort of made this point as well. Sometimes people mistake improvement with having more stuff. And I'm so guilty of having so much stuff.
Yeah.
I need to take a week off and like just clean up my desk, and because I've literally got cables coming out of the cable management of my table that don't connect to anything anymore because my computer has changed and the power connections are different and all kinds of stuff. Jesse writes, great point, Saeed, staying humble is important. And hello from Vietnam. Hello, Jesse. I didn't realize you were from Vietnam. Great to have your company. And Ernesto writes, that makes sense. And Jesse is very aware of this acronym that people like to use, gas gear acquisition syndrome. And again, I feel a little conflicted about that because sometimes, some weeks I just have a bad week, and the only thing that'll make me happy is if I buy myself a new piece of gear. And I've been looking for literally any excuse to buy a Stream Deck Plus, and I was hoping that Saeed would give me some excuses to commit to that, but that's still kind of a work in progress. But anyway. All right. So again, like, and I know it sounds like a bit of a cop-out, but the big thing we always come back to is, you know, what are your goals? What do you want to achieve?
Yes.
How technically proficient are you? How much do you care about, you know, the ability to customize things? Because at the end of the day, there are lots of turnkey solutions that are straight out of a web browser that can work really well if your goal is just to have a side-by-side conversation with somebody. And I think for a lot of people, that's the skill they need to develop right now. Like, you know, as much as we love the OBS stuff and we play with the settings and we play with all the plugins, that's not for everybody. And I just want to acknowledge that that's true as well. Ileana is a newbie in all AI apps, and she's learning hands-on and finding it exciting. Maybe a 51-year-old AI nerd over here. Okay, cool. I'm trying to be so nice because AI is my least favorite thing in the world, but you do you. That's the important thing here.
I hear you though. We can form a club. I am also 51.
Nice.
And
I think we're losing Sam there a little bit. The audio. He'll be back in a second. I'll just make
we had a little.
Yeah, there we go. I think you're back. Hello.
We're back. Maybe.
Okay. Yes. Yep. Okay. All right. Awesome. Okay. So I mean, clearly, that's the other thing about live is you just have to resolve yourself to the fact that stuff will go wrong. Said writes, a Stream Deck Plus combined with the new USB hubs from Elgato could declutter your desk a little. Yeah, I mean, that's literally the reason I was looking at that one, because I love the idea of the hub. I know they do have the XLR thing as well, which can be good as well. And yeah, Tanya's saying, don't say AI in front of John. Oh dear, it's such a running joke. But it's just, you know, and honestly, you do you though, because it's very important for me, like the authorship, the control, making sure that I think about the things I want to put out into the world and really synthesize those into words a little bit and go from there. So. And Farquhar is saying that Sam's 60 AOL hours have run out. And unfortunately, like, it's definitely a thing that's happening right now, is that the quality has degraded quite a bit. So we might start wrapping up the show. So Sam, assuming you're even still here, where can people find you, watch your content, connect with you on social media, all of the things?
Yeah, you can head over to samproof.tv or scan that QR code. You'll find all of my social platform links at the top left of the website, pretty much prioritized in order of how I use them, though I think I might need to move a certain light blue chiclet to the end there. And if you didn't get enough cats today, head over to cuteavalanche.com and check out what we're doing over there, especially over on the YouTube page. So you can find us as Cute Avalanche on any social platform that you use. And that's it.
And if you want to catch up with me, you can head over to johnlacey.com. I've got the podcast and articles and a whole bunch of different things on there. If you scroll to the bottom of those pages, you'll find links to social media. I tend to hang out on YouTube and LinkedIn especially, so you can come and find me over there. As Tanya says, hey folks, hit the like button. And I should press this button over here as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It's ridiculous how proud I am of those little things I've been making in DaVinci Resolve Fusion. But again, I haven't actually scheduled tomorrow's stream, but I will be going live roughly the same time tomorrow to play in Fusion. So if you're interested in that, or if you just want to hang out and chat, join me over on the Lone Live Streaming YouTube channel. But have a great week. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you roughly the same time next week. There is some daylight saving stuff, so just keep an eye out for those invites on the various channels. But don't forget to subscribe wherever you happen to be watching this. Again, I go live on a small handful of places, but Sam goes out to a whole bunch of places. So wherever you are, hit the appropriate buttons. Have a great week, and we will talk to you again very, very soon.